Hello and welcome to the Sustainability Skillset Podcast, a show where we explore careers in sustainability and the skills to help you succeed. I'm glad you're here. If you are passionate about sustainability and hungry to learn, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Louis Damaso, a sustainability consultant and young sustainability professional, learning right along with you. In this episode, I had a fantastic conversation with Mike Hauer, a sustainability communication leader who has spent his career helping companies craft narratives around their social and environmental performance. From senior editor at Greenbiz to communication strategist at Edelman, Mike has had experience working on sustainability communications as a journalist, within companies, and as a consultant. He recently started his own company, Hauer Impact, to continue this work as a fractional executive and a leadership coach. Mike also holds regular sustainability career advice connection sections, so he had plenty of relevant thoughts to share during our conversation related to what he's seen and heard about the challenges sustainability professionals face. Personally, I'm inspired by Mike's entrepreneurial spirit. I learned a lot and I enjoyed his candor, and I think you will too. Please welcome Mike Hauer. Hey Mike, it's great to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Louis.
So I was reading a LinkedIn post the other day about how you had climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Congratulations, by the way. That's an incredible accomplishment. And you had compared climbing Kilimanjaro to working in a sustainability career, which I also thought was really interesting. So we're going to dive into that today. But first, what was that whole experience like?
It was really hard. So I was in Tanzania in September climbing Kilimanjaro with the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, which is a cancer research organization that does research for cancer that my dad currently has, and he's doing well. But I was there climbing with some cancer survivors and some doctors and caretakers. And so it was, a bucket list item. I'd always wanted to do it. And what better reason than to do it to raise money for a good cause? It's just a really difficult climb. So, I'd spent months training for it. And then, that doesn't ever truly prepare you for it. And so I was just thinking a lot in retrospect as I was reflecting on the experience that it is a lot like a career in corporate sustainability. So yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about that today as we unpack that.
Yeah, it sounds like the training must have paid off to a certain degree, but that you could never really fully prepare for the experience, right?
That's right.
So you begin your LinkedIn post by describing the climb, and I'll read that real quick. You begin the summit climb late at night in the pitch dark, with nothing but a headlamp to light the way. At this altitude, all the forces of nature work against you. Gravity, the cold, and even the air try to prevent you from moving upward. You have to believe it's possible to get there. So what challenges did you face at the beginning of your sustainability career that reminded you of this?
Yeah. So, touching on the actual experience of the climbing Kilimanjaro. So, by the time you actually get to the summit, you've already been going for a while. So this is probably like a week into the hike. And then they wake you up at dark. So it's about 10 p.m., 10:30. And then you start climbing with headlamps and it's pitch black. You have no idea where you're going. You're just following your guides and you're just believing that they're taking you the right direction and you're going pretty much straight up. And so I was thinking that is a lot like how it feels at the beginning of your career, not just in the beginning of your career, but I think even just anyone that's attempting to address the climate crisis right now, like we have no idea where we're heading. Like we know what science tells us is going to happen if we don't act, but we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of decades. And so that just made me think in general, even once you're working in the field, we're kind of all going in the dark right now. And we just have to have faith that we're going to get where we want to go. As far as, the beginning of your career, it's one of those fields that you can't map it out like you could maybe if you were going into law or, a traditional path like finance or even traditional marketing. If you're an accountant, you go work at a Deloitte and then you're accountant 1, accountant 2, and you just keep working your way up to whatever it is you want to do. And sustainability, it's really the Wild West. I still have a good many decades left in my career, but I'm about 15 years into my career already. And it's even changed a lot since I've been in it. It can be a little stressful where you don't really know where you're going next. You can only really see what's in front of you. And at the same time, as you're trying to advance your personal career, you're also trying to make a difference in the world. So you kind of have two different ways of measuring success of like, all right, am I moving up in my field? And also, am I actually making a difference?
Absolutely. And you mentioned how over the course of your career so far, you've witnessed those changes, I'm sure, because sustainability has changed a lot in the last 15 years. Could you speak a little bit about just how you've seen that shift occur in the industry and how the challenges that sustainability professionals face has shifted as a result?
Yeah, and I know this isn't a popular opinion when I'm talking to people who are struggling to break in. And I know everybody says this about the generation before, but it's actually easier today than it was when I started. It was just that much harder because even when I was getting into it, there were very few actual sustainability departments. ESG wasn't even a term we were using yet. CSR was really the prevailing paradigm at the time. So the way I kind of found my way into this space was indirect. In college, I didn't even know this was a career path. I was a political science major. I was thinking about going to law school. I even signed up for the LSAT and I decided it wasn't for me. I'm not going to go through my whole resume, but basically it took just trying a lot of different things. So eventually I discovered this corporate sustainability career path. Now I think it's a little bit, it definitely is more built out. Kids are getting degrees in this field. There's grad degrees. Back when I was in school, they probably existed, but they were just less well known. It was more, okay, go get an environmental science degree or this or that. Like now you can actually get a bachelor's in sustainable business, or I don't know if that's exactly a thing, but you can actually study this in school now. And there's a lot more grad programs. Almost every MBA program has sustainability built into it now. And so I think you've seen more and more jobs appear. So I think what's happened is there's more jobs, but there's also more people that want those jobs. So it's still hard because back when I was looking to break in, there were fewer people trying to do this anyway. So there were fewer jobs, but fewer people trying to get those jobs. Now there's a lot more jobs and a lot more people that want those jobs. So that's why it feels like there hasn't been progress in that front. But even just what I see happening on LinkedIn, there's still jobs popping up all the time. Now, that being said, and I deal with this all the time when I'm giving people career advice and they're struggling. It's still hard to get those jobs because a lot of these jobs require, they're looking for unicorns half the time. And I could spend a whole podcast talking about that. But I think part of the frustration also comes from organizations don't really know what they need or what they want, or what they need is not what they can afford. And so where they should really be hiring a whole team, they only have budget for one person or two people. And so they have to get more bang for their buck. And then people who could be really good in these roles maybe get overlooked because they don't have a perfect resume.
That's right. I would love to hear about how you stumbled into this space and how the accumulation of your experiences up to that point led you to breaking into sustainability. Yeah.
So my first job out of college was at a PR firm in San Francisco, working with a lot of solar companies and energy efficiency companies. And that was my first insight into, okay, like I can make a difference and make money. And that was something that was always a driver for me. I've never been a money driven guy. Obviously, I need money to live and to have a standard of living that I want. But I was never one of those guys that was like, oh, I'm just going to go make bank somewhere. Like that wasn't ever my dream. And also I graduated during the Great Recession where it was tough. It's even in 2020 when it was tough, it wasn't anywhere near like it was in the Great Recession. Like there were just no jobs. I ended up having to take an unpaid internship. Back then you could actually get away with hiring postgrads without paying them. And I took an unpaid internship. Luckily, they actually hired me pretty quickly full time after that. But I wasn't ready to go down the traditional path. Like up at that point, I'd definitely been a guy that had always kind of done what was expected of me. And I went, got good grades, studied hard, went to good school, finished in 4 years. And I just kind of hit this, I call it my core life crisis, where I was just like, do I just sit in a cubicle for 40 years and then I die? Like that doesn't sound appealing to me. I really needed to get out of my comfort zone to test myself. And I was like, I need to just get out into the world and see it and like figure stuff out. And so I found this program called World Teach, which is now defunct, but it used to be through Harvard University Center for National Development. So they placed me in a poor neighborhood in Bogota to teach English, which actually was part of an IBM grant to use technology to teach young people. And so it's interesting because I was actually part of a CSR initiative that I didn't know what CSR was at the time. So, did that for a year, and it was an experience. I always tell people it was the best, worst, and greatest year of my life. It was really challenging being in another country where I only knew a few people from my program, and the language barrier was tough. Yeah, it was really hard. And during that year, I was able to travel a bit, and I went to it's called the San Blas Archipelago, which is off the coast of Panama, and got to meet some of the locals and went on toured a local village. And there's people that live there called the Guna, and they've been there for forever. And they were telling us that sea level rise is going to cause them to have to relocate back to the mainland. And this was back in 2011, back when even those of us who accepted climate science, we still thought, oh, climate change is going to be a problem in like 100 years, not right now. It's amazing even just to think, even in that short time period, how that's changed. Because at the time, as we all know now, climate change has been impacting parts of the global south forever. And now it's starting to hit the global north. So now we're noticing, but other people who had the least to do with climate change have been suffering for a long time. So anyway, that was kind of an eye opener for me and made me realize, okay, I need to do something with my life to address this. When I saw the connection between social and environmental justice, I think that was the big unlock for me. Like I've always been, I grew up in California. I love nature. That's always been a thing for me, but I never saw myself as like, oh, I'm going to go work for Greenpeace or something. It was really seeing the human impacts of climate change that really turned that on for me. And then meanwhile, I've always loved writing. I wrote for my college newspaper. I've been writing my whole life. I always want to be a writer. I guess I kind of am a writer, but I wanted to use those skills to help the climate crisis. And so when I got back, I found a job at Sustainable Brands, helping them with one of their conferences. I think it was Sustainable Brands 2012. That's when I first was like, oh, corporate sustainability. This is like a thing. And I definitely was very skeptical and still am. And I think most of us are. To work in this space, you have to be a skeptical idealist. I think that's what's driven me most of my life, actually. Like we're realists, but we also like can't help but want to make the world better and try, even if we know we're going to fail.
With a good streak of optimism too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then, one thing led to the other. I started writing for Greenbiz, and then I had a stint. I went back to DC for grad school where I studied sustainability comms, and then worked at Edelman for a bit doing sustainability communications and strategy for companies like the North Face and some others. Worked at some climate tech startups. And then most recently I was at a small ESG agency. And then now I'm doing my own business. So it's been a journey.
When you were getting into this space, you really had no idea of where this path would lead you, did you?
Oh, no way. I had no idea. And I remember actually when I got back from Colombia and I was unemployed and I was looking for a job, and I was like, okay, like I would go to Indeed and type in sustainability, and I don't even remember what would pop up, but back then you didn't have sustainability analyst jobs, and none of the jobs that popped up really fit what I wanted or what I'm interested in. Cause I'm not a spreadsheet guy. Like I don't want to spend all day crunching numbers. That's not what interests me. Once the numbers are crunched, I can review the numbers and then translate that into whatever needs to be, a strategy or communication or whatnot. A lot of those jobs didn't exist. And also the job descriptions have always required ridiculous amounts of experience. What I ended up doing was I would take jobs that didn't necessarily have sustainability in the title. I had a comms manager role at a, I guess it was sort of focused on social stuff, but it was a legal tech company. So, got a bunch of skills there. And that's some advice I give people all the time now is, don't worry about the title. And I get why a lot of people care more, because, if I'd known that I wanted to work in sustainability from day one and I got a degree in it, I would probably be more inclined to I want to go right into this. But even today, that's still not as common. And I think you need to learn to be humble and let go and say, what am I actually trying to achieve with my career? Like, what are the skills I need to get? Maybe I can acquire these skills in a job that is not a sustainability role specifically, but it'll give me the skills I need that will get me to where I want to go. And also, not everyone needs to work on a CSO track career path. There's a million different ways to address the climate crisis or other ESG challenges in different capacities. I think right now there's a huge racket going on where people are spending all this money on certifications. And I'm not saying they're all bad, but just because you went and spent $1,000 to get certified in that's not necessarily going to help you. I mean, it's not going to hurt you to get it, but you don't need it necessarily. You learn more by just doing. But then the question is like, how do I get the job without the certification? So it's chicken or the egg problem. I think it's good to have a general idea of the impact you want to have in the world, and then also know what you like doing and what you're good at and what you want to get better at, and focus on that. But I've never been somebody to map out my career and say, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to be that. Like, that's never been how I approach life.
No, definitely not. And you mentioned that it's a chicken or an egg problem in terms of, how do you get the job to learn by doing to get the skills? And I'm sure a big part of that is the people that you know and kind of the relationships you form. And that leads us to the next spot on climbing this mountain which is, as difficult as it is, you're not alone. Expert guides help you along your path, and your fellow climbers encourage you to stay the course. The headlamps of other climbing groups dot the mountain, both ahead and behind. Sometimes groups pass you, but we're all working towards the same goal. Could you describe a little bit about how you've approached networking throughout your career and reflect on that?
Yeah. I'm trying to think when I first realized I finally had a good network. It didn't happen overnight. One day I woke up and I was like, wow, I know a lot of people now. And I think for me, a lot of it helped that I was a journalist because I used that to meet a lot of people. I was doing that when I was like my early mid 20s, and I could get access to like a CEO, which who would want it? What CEO wants to talk to a 23-year-old? But if you're gonna be writing about them, then they want to talk to you. And so that helps me a lot. And I think that also because I had the kind of that power of the pen earlier on in my career, like I've never been somebody that's been, I don't know what the word is. I'm not intimidated by titles. Like I've never been. I think that's also comes from my blue collar background. Like I'm the son of a mechanic and a school teacher. Like if I see a CEO, I don't think that they're any better than me. I think we're all people. And the more senior I get, I also know that the CEOs aren't perfect and don't know everything either. And so I think that kind of gave me this natural just tendency to be like, all right, I'm going to approach anybody and talk to them. And also I'm just a naturally curious person. So I don't think of networking as what am I going to get out of this person? I think of it as what am I going to learn from them? And then how can I help them kind of mentality? And that has really been how I've grown my network over the years. It's really just been like being genuinely interested in people. And for me, I think that's actually what I like most about sustainability is the other people that are working in this space, even people that I don't work with directly, like we're all on the same team. And I don't think there's any other field where you could say that where like, we all have different jobs, different functions, but we're all trying to address climate change and make the world better. Like there's very few career paths where you have that kind of common cause. And so I think because of that, when I meet other people that are working in sustainability, I'm generally excited to meet them because I want to know like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you working here? Like, what are you working on? How can we help each other? So that to me has just naturally led to that. And it's never been an intentional, like I'm trying to network to get a job or to, last several years, I've spent a lot of time doing business development. And even now, like, I'm this individual consultant. And so networking does lead to business for me, but that's not why I talk to people. And actually, the more that I'm trying to just connect with somebody and engage with them and not try to get anything out of them, that's more likely going to lead to something down the road because then they think of me when something pops up. They're like, Mike, he does that. He does sustainability comms. I should call him, or I heard someone needs some help. Like that's really how it works. And I think I give advice to people who are looking for jobs. And I think that's the challenge where when you need something like I need a job, that's the worst time to network actually, which is not what most people think. Most people think, when you're unemployed is when you should be networking the most. I disagree. I think you should be networking more when you're currently employed and happy where you are. Because when you network from a position of not needing anything, that's when you're going to actually create genuine connections. Obviously, you can still network when you're unemployed or in between jobs. But if you're doing it right, you're already doing it before you lose your job. So then when you lose your job, you already have a network and also you can continue to network versus like, oh my God, I have to catch up and expand my network right now.
If somebody's working in a job right now and they're going out to try to network, how do you frame that as like, what's their goal? And you shared already how, you like to approach networking as how can I help this person or how can I, how do you recommend people go about doing that?
I would say LinkedIn is where it's at. I mean, there's never been a greater tool for connecting people than LinkedIn in history, and it's free. And especially since the pandemic, people have really opened up to connecting virtually now. So I actually I'm trying to remember how I did it. I mean, I'd go to conferences, I guess, before, and I still do, but now, you can reach out to people on LinkedIn and just meet them on a Zoom call or even just engage with them on, their content, comment on their posts. And that's still a form of networking, in my opinion. Like when people, like I post a lot of content on LinkedIn and there's a lot of people that I've never actually talked to, but they engage with my content a lot. So now I kind of feel like I know them. Like they like my posts and they comment on my posts. And And, if I ran into them, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily remember them if I ran into them at a conference, but that's happened to me now where people come up to me at conferences and they're like, oh, Mike, I love your content. And then I make the connection. Oh, okay. Now we know each other. And so I'd say LinkedIn, but I would say make sure you're approaching LinkedIn and networking for the right reasons, and not like people know when you're trying to get something out of them. Like that's just the key. And this is something that advice I give to people all the time, because I get constant requests for people who are asking for help about careers. That's why I actually started doing these monthly connection sections. I used to call them Impact Hour. Now I call them connection sections. I'm trying to eventually expand it into being more than career advice. But I was like getting all these requests, and I was like, I would be spending all day doing one-on-ones if I said yes. And I don't want to ignore anybody, so I want to help everybody. So I ended up just started doing them once a month. So now, like, I have one tomorrow, and I've got like 25 people coming. So instead of having 25 1-hour calls, I can in 1 hour help 25 people. And so, because I'm basically saying the same thing over and over again, so they might as well just say it all at once. And so, especially those people that are networking under those circumstances, you have to be very careful, because, there's this open door climate movement that my friend Dan started, and it's great. I think it's a great concept. My only concern about it is I have heard from some people who have opened their doors that some people that have reached out have been, either not shown up to meetings, or they've been a little bit like, if you don't have time for me, then you're somehow like not a nice person. And you need to be very humble when you're trying to connect with people. Some people are busy. Some people are not going to want to talk to you, and you just have to accept it and just walk away and be like, okay. Generally, like, I don't think I've ever flat out said no to anybody. That's why I do these monthly calls, because I really just say, come to my monthly call, and then that satisfies their need, because you can't force connection. You really can't. So I think sometimes people, they approach it in a way where they think, oh, if I can get this person on a call, then maybe I can get something out of them someday. Like, don't do it that way. Think in terms of like, I need like a legit reason to like connect with this person. Like, I had this idea, or like, I actually have helped a few students were working on dissertations, and they interviewed me, and I was like, okay, I'll help you with that. Sure. But if it's just like, hey, do you want to just connect and give me career advice? Like that's why career coaches exist too. It costs money. So I'm happy to give an hour of my time every month to help a bunch of people with career advice. And that's why, I even do these podcasts, and I try to write, I have a section on my website called Impact Hired, where I try to write articles and create content that help job seekers. But I just think that you need to approach it with humility when you're trying to connect with people.
That's so important.
Yeah.
How would somebody attend one of these connection sections if they want to?
Well, first they should follow me on LinkedIn, because I usually post like a sign up link. They can also go to my website, www.howerimpact.com, and there's a little section where I have like the next ones that you can find, and you can sign up. I also have a newsletter that I don't send out as regularly as I'd like, but I will include stuff there. So lots of ways, but best way is probably follow me on LinkedIn, and then I usually post something about it.
It sounds like you're doing so much, and it's evident on LinkedIn with all the great content that you've.
I don't know how I'm doing it, man. Ever since going out on my own, it's just everything becomes possible, and it's like it doesn't feel like work. Yeah. So it's just like, what else can I do? And that's actually been the biggest challenge of like, how do I do everything I want to do? I can't. I guess that's why people hire people, but I'm not there yet.
Well, that is literally the next step on the mountain here, and that's which, despite training for months, your mind and body are pushed to the limits. No amount of preparation could make this easy. Putting one foot in front of the other, you slowly make your way onward. But it feels like you aren't making progress. The top feels impossibly far off. Could you reflect at all on a point in your career which you felt that way, and kind of how you pushed through that, and how you managed your stress, workload, emotions to get past that?
Yeah. I think for me, I haven't hit that point yet where I'm allowing myself to be burnt out by the lack of progress on climate. And I don't really know why. And I have a lot of friends that are really down about, we're not hitting climate targets. Like, I'm at this organization and we're not doing anything. Maybe it's because I've been mostly a consultant where I'm outside of that, where I just give advice and I move on and I don't have to deal with all that. I think maybe just because I'm just a naturally optimistic guy, and I don't let it get me down, or I'm focused more on the big picture. But I would say, like, yeah, throughout my career, I've had points where I've had low points where just even personally, I'm like, oh man, like that really wasn't fun. And that experience, that company didn't turn out the way I hoped it would. So more of like at the company level, not so much like the climate progress level.
Well, it sounds like you've been able to keep your energy high and you've been able to keep moving forward. What motivates you and energizes you to keep moving forward like that?
I think because I don't allow myself to stay boxed in, like even like this is advice I give people all the time, that if you're feeling burnt out in an organization, you gotta leave. Like it's not to, to use an analogy, like if you're in a relationship with someone and you feel like you have to be there and you don't want to be there, you probably shouldn't be in that relationship. But I talk to people all the time who they know they don't want to be there anymore. They know they want to do something else. But I get it. Sometimes, yeah, you need a job, you need a paycheck. That's fine. But if you're that miserable, like sometimes you got to find ways to move on, and maybe it's not exactly the way you want to do. And it's not always going to be upward. Sometimes you have to go lateral to move forward. And like for me, I think I've just, I've kind of changed up I wouldn't say I've changed up my career a lot. Technically it's all been in the same kind of path, but I've done a lot of different things. So, like right now I'm super jazzed because this is the first time in my life that I've been an entrepreneur, and I've always wanted to be one. And so it's like a new version of me. And I have someone in my network, she's always saying that there's so many versions of Mike Howard. You've done so many different things. And, like I was Mike Howard that volunteered in South America, Mike Howard, the journalist, Mike Howard did this and went to DC, and now I'm Mike Howard, the solopreneur. And that's been really energizing for me because I have been in organizations in the past where I have felt boxed in and put in a box for what I can or can't do. And I think now I feel like I can literally do anything. And I've got all this experience and all these skills that I can apply in different ways. Like, I started teaching this writing for impact masterclass recently. Actually, we're halfway through it now. And it's been really fun because I really love writing and I'm good at it. And I was realizing there's a lot of people in sustainability that aren't good at it. So I was like, I could make this into a thing. And so I just put it up on our website that I'm going to do this. And then I got 12 people to sign up, and now I'm teaching that. And so it's been really cool to just think about how can I find a way to solve these problems and also, make a living doing it, which is one of the things that is super exciting, I think, to me right now about where we are in sustainability versus where we were even a few years ago. Like there's going to be tons of entrepreneurship happening in the next 5 to 10 years because we have to, because all business is addressing problems, right? So there are a million problems out there. If you can find a way to fix them, you're going to make a lot of money. And I'm not doing this for the money, but if I can make a living doing something I love and solving problems, like that to me is more fulfilling. And I think that kind of goes back to your original question is I think I set my expectations of what I can achieve to be more realistic. Like I don't expect to solve climate change by myself. Like that's not possible, but I can, meet my own personal milestones for what I want to do and the people I want to help. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about creating content and being active on LinkedIn and connecting with people. And sometimes I organize these in-person events called Impact Hours, because it's really the people have always been what have driven me. And so I think I focus on that. I focus on how can I energize other people and keep them going, and then that makes me feel fulfilled. And hopefully that helps keep people moving forward who are, the people that are actually turning the wrenches that are going to be decreasing the carbon, keep them motivated. And then that's kind of how I'm going to give back.
It sounds like the people component is a really big part of the way you've approached your career and how you continue to push it forward.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So you've talked about what you're doing right now with classes and with the coaching and with the consulting. And, that all comes under your company, Howard Impact, which is the peak of the mountain at this point, at least. Maybe it's a false summit. Maybe there's a whole lot more to go. I like to think so. But that brings us to the top of Kilimanjaro, basically, where it's finally standing at the top of the highest mountain. You can hardly believe that you've arrived. Now you can look back and see what you've overcome to get there, and everything feels possible. Could you describe a little bit about if that's the way it feels starting Howard Impact and kind of what led you to start Howard Impact in the first place?
Yeah, I really hope I'm not peaking right now because I've got a lot of life left in me. But I don't think that's the summit. I think the summit is more. I don't think any of us are going to reach the summit. That's the whole, and that's okay. We're not going to, even if we manage to achieve net zero by 2050 and hit all of the goals that we need to hit, sustainability is forever. Like this is something that as long as humans exist, we're going to have to be working on this. And so I think having that realization, like actually I was thinking about writing an article about this because we're so focused on these, the next 20 or 30 years, which is important, but it's not like we're just going to hit net zero and then it's all good. Like we're literally going to have to be working on this for as long as humans exist. And
it feels like so much the focus of that's the only time span that we're focusing on.
Right. Like I'm really bad with, like, I'll spend hours just watching random YouTube videos about, like, physics and like the cosmos and like space and stuff. And you start thinking in terms of like geologic time, or like even the galactic time, like billions of years. Like, yeah, eventually in a couple billion years, the Earth is going to burn up and no life on Earth will exist. You think about that, you're like, okay, well, what's the point? I mean, a billion years is a long time. I would really like, there's lots of generations of people and life that can go on until then. And who knows? I mean, who knows? But as far as like, we're not going to have like a World War II parade at 2050. Like, it's not going to be ever like that. And I think that's actually ties back to even what I do is my core business, which is communicating sustainability. It's the hardest story to tell because it doesn't fit like the traditional kind of structure of a story where, you know, there's a clear villain, you overcome the villain, you win, you move on. Like we are all the villains technically in the story. Like, we're all to blame. We're all also responsible for fixing it. And also there isn't going to be some dramatic victory, you know, like Independence Day is one of my favorite like crappy sci-fi movies. You know, there's no like, we're going to go blow up the mothership and then we all save the world. Like, that's not how it's going to be. It's going to be much more boring. It's going to be like, oh, we're still alive and Earth isn't that bad, or Earth only sucks a little bit now. Like, it's like really not that motivational. So I think that's why for me as a communicator, it's like a very interesting challenge of like, how do we frame these challenges in ways that people can respond to? Because really at the end of the day, humans are story driven creatures. Like, data and all that is important to a degree, but we're not motivated by data. We're motivated by stories. And I know a lot of like number driven people dislike that, but I mean, just look at the United States, like you can give people all the data in the world. They still don't believe climate is real. Like, just they hold on to the story that they believe. So going back to why I started Howard Impact, I've always wanted to be my own boss. I think my dad is a small business owner, kind of come from that stock. And I side hustled a lot earlier in my career. And I met actually a lot of solopreneurs earlier in my career. And we're probably about my age now. And I always was really impressed by that. I was like, wow, I love this idea that you could just like work for yourself and you don't have to like answer to anybody really. But at the time I was like, I'm too young, or I don't have enough experience or the connections. And which was probably true at the time. And I would say, about 5 years ago, I was like really close to doing it. And then I decided to not do it yet. And then I think about a year ago, it was really just burning in me. I'm like, all right, you know, I'm in my mid 30s. Like, this is like the best time to start. And all the business books will tell you actually like mid 30s is the best time to start a business, because you're still relatively young, but you're experienced. It's like the only time in your life will be both of those things. And also my dad getting sick with cancer last year really changed me a lot, because made me realize how short life is. And I know that's like everyone says that, but when you actually see it firsthand, you're like I was sitting in the hospital with my dad, just picturing one day I will be in the hospital bed. Probably we all are at some point. Like, what is going to be going through my head when that time comes? And I knew like some of the things would be like, all right, I wish I had written a book. I wish I'd started a business. Wish I'd started a podcast. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to just do all those things now. So, and I was ready. I was like, I have the connections. Like, I have the knowledge. Like, I don't need to be rich. I just need to make enough money to just pay my bills. And I did it. And it was super scary. Getting that last paycheck's terrifying. But what's been really amazing has been my network has really come through it for me. Like, I'm busier than I ever thought I would be. I'm making as much money and probably will make more money next year than I would in a regular full-time job. And again, it's not about the money, but a lot of times people are afraid to do this because of the money. And that hasn't actually been the issue. And, all the things that I want to do, like I'm going to launch a podcast early next year. So stay tuned for that on sustainability communication. I'm going to start writing a book next year that hopefully will publish by 2025. All the things that I've been wanting to do, I'm just doing them. And so those are like my personal career ambitions, but I also think that's how I can make the biggest impact on the world, because I'm good at translating complicated sustainability information into stories that help motivate people. So if I can create a podcast that helps move the needle, great. If I can write a book that inspires somebody or teaches somebody something that helps them advance sustainability, then that I'm doing my part. So kind of using my own superpowers to help however I can. And I think that's advice I give everybody. Like, try to figure out what your superpower is, whatever it is. Some people, data is their thing, and that we need that. We actually need more data people than ever. Actually, and even what I do right now, there's increasingly roles called sustainability communication director or manager, people that can work both worlds. That's increasingly a field that's growing. If that's your jam, maybe you want to go work at a climate tech company in sales. Like, there's a million different jobs to help. And you just kind of have to know yourself and know what motivates you and what, not only, I don't like using the term what you're good at, because I think that can also box you in, like what you like doing. Because I've been told many times throughout my career what I'm good at. People try to tell me what they think I'm good at, and they're wrong. And I've proven them wrong.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just know yourself. And also, like, try different things. Don't be afraid to fail. Like, try a couple different things. Like, a job is not the end all be all. Like, maybe you'll try something out and you'll try a job and you'll say, you know what, that wasn't for me. I'm going to do something else. And it's okay to move around and not worry about, oh, I have to stay at this company for 5 years or it's going to look bad in my resume. Like, there's nothing wrong with treating each job as like an extension of your education, as like another class.
Absolutely. I can feel the energy coming from you through the microphone.
Thanks. It does feel good. I was actually telling somebody the other day in a call, like, I don't think I've ever been this excited about work. And like, every single day I wake up super jazzed and like, just like, oh my God, everything is possible. The only thing that stresses me out is I think I'm trying to do too much. But actually, I know I'm trying to do too much. So actually, that's my goal for next year is, okay, I need to try to approach this a little bit more strategically of like what should, just to maintain my own sustainability. Cause I've just been going on all cylinders, like trying everything this year, which was the plan. But yeah, I think when you hit that point, you find that job, and it's not just the job. I don't think it's the job specifically, but you find your opportunities to utilize the things that you like doing to make a difference. And it's just like the greatest feeling in the world. And it's taken me honestly 14, 15 years to get to this point. And I would, to your question of is how impact the peak. I mean, I don't think I'll ever go back. I mean, I won't say ever. I don't see myself going to work for someone else directly anytime soon. But I would love to continue doing what I'm doing for a long time and, see where it goes and see what good I can do.
Well, I know a lot of people are probably listening to this and just feeling jazzed about sustainability and feeling jazzed about what they could accomplish, but maybe they're very much in a spot right now where they are not working on the challenges they want to work on. They're in a company and they want to make a change. I know you probably talk to a lot of people who are in that situation because you do these career talks and things like that. What advice do you have for people who are in that position?
First thing I tell them is it's not that great to work in sustainability. It's not going to change your life. Like, I used to have this attitude of like, oh man, those chief sustainability officers must just be, they're like demigods. Like, they know everything. They're saving the world. They're superheroes. And then you meet a bunch and everyone's lovely. That's not the issue. But a lot of them are miserable in their jobs or they're frustrated and it's hard. So it's not like, oh my God, if I had that job, I would be happy. You need to be happy with who you are now. The job is not going to change that. And honestly, it's really hard. It's really hard to work in sustainability. Like, I'm not even halfway through my career yet, and I'm already like seeing how people burn out, because it's not like other industries where your main measure for success is how much money am I making? Am I getting promoted? And is this company going to IPO, whatever? Like, our measurement for success ultimately, are we going to save life on this planet? That's also a lot of pressure to put on yourself. So I tell people, don't do that. But
yep.
When you're in it for more than just the traditional reasons, it's hard. And, even like my girlfriend, she's a dietitian. So she works with patients at Stanford and, dealing with very, very difficult patient cases, but it's more one-on-one. But when I'm trying to tell her about the things that stress me out, I mean, she obviously believes in climate change, but it's sometimes she's like, why are you putting that pressure on yourself? Like, you can't do that all. She can individually help a patient help them get the nutrition they need. So I try to apply that too. Like, okay, can I do a little good? Can I make this one organization a little better? Can I help this one person figure it out more? Like, so kind of like breaking it down into manageable pieces of like, this is what I can actually change. Like, I'm not going to like I mean, even the richest people on the planet are throwing billions of dollars at this and can't solve it. Like, I've been thinking about that lately where I'm like, think about the money that like Bill Gates and Bloomberg are all throwing at this problem, they have more money than I would ever in a cajillion years have, and they still can't solve it. So I wonder what that must feel like. I mean, they're still doing a lot of good, but they can't even do it throwing billions of dollars at the problem. So if they can't do it, what's the everyday person like us supposed to do? Like, all we can do is what we can do, which is to do our best and try to make the world a little better, one person and one organization at a time.
And it so aligns with what we've heard on other episodes as well, where we've talked with people who've described, you can make an impact and you can start working on sustainability right where you're at. And if you need to make a change, if the company's completely shutting you down, then like, of course, that makes sense as well. But it doesn't have to be a sustainability role to start raising your hand and reaching out to the director of sustainability in your company, or even just starting the role in your company if it doesn't exist there, and just working on ways in which sustainability impacts your industry in your field, right?
100%. And I think that's actually a big opportunity for a lot of people who are trying to break in, who maybe they're working at another organization. Like, and I've met a lot of people that have done this, or maybe they were the first to start even like an ESG internal group, like an ERM or something.
Even if a chat group or something, right?
Yeah.
Just to talk about it.
And then I know one woman, she did this, and I think she was like, hey, let me, like, I'm kind of teaching myself carbon accounting. Can I like do our like greenhouse gas inventory? And they're like, sure. And then now she can say that she did that.
And that's so much better than a CDP certification or something like that, right?
Yeah. And I think that we are definitely in a crisis right now of like capabilities, but I think everyone needs to learn everything that they need to learn. Like, this idea of like, some people contain all the ESG knowledge and we just need to like, it's like, this is like, knowledge is the one resource that is infinite. Like, we can all share it, and we all need everyone to learn as much as possible, and everyone can learn this stuff. And we're all learning. Like, it's not like you just learn it and you're there. Like, every ESG expert I know is constantly learning, because what they knew a year ago is now pretty much irrelevant. So you have to be, and this is something that is constantly stressing me out too, is like, how do I find the time to stay on top of everything? You just do your best. And also, going back to our earlier point about networking, I learn more through my one-on-one conversations with people than I do from anything else, I would say. So that's another good reason to network, is it's like actually the only way to stay relevant, because you can, I learn from, I go on LinkedIn, people in my network post articles that I never would have found on my own, and I can read them, or like someone tells me about something, or like a cool resource. Like, that's the best, like, knowledge sharing. Like, we all have to be doing this. And luckily there's a ton of resources out there now that a lot of them are free even. I'm trying to do this with sustainability communication because there's not a lot of good, solid sustainability communication out there. So I've been writing a lot of articles on that topic and stuff that I hope people can use in their jobs, especially people that aren't focused on comms but still need to use it.
That's amazing. It ties us all back to the ability to reach out to people and to put yourself out there and to build that network, not when you need it, but preemptively, so that you're always staying on top of things and you're always staying ahead of the industry, so that when you need those opportunities or you just come across those opportunities, you can seize them. Is that right?
That's what ends up happening, but that's not even what I'm thinking of when I'm doing it. I'm just like, hey, you're a cool person. I would love to meet you. Like, I would love to learn something from you. And honestly, I've gotten more from people that I've asked nothing of than people that I've asked something of. So, when I talk to people and I just connect with them and I ask for nothing, they often go out of, actually, especially since I've started my own business, I've had so many people in my network, a lot of like people way more senior than me, like go out of their way to try to help me and like connect me and like refer me. And I never ask anything of them. And I think that's part of it. That's why. But I think also people, they want to see other people succeed. And so like, that's how I view, like, I want everyone to feel like I'm feeling right now with how I am with Our Impact. Like, I want everyone to wake up every day super jazzed. Well, it's not going to be every day, but generally feel jazzed about what they're doing and just knowing that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and what they were put on this planet to do. Because I think that's just like, there's this quote by Howard Thurman. He said, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And I've loved that quote my whole life, actually. I think since high school. And I think it's true, because if we're all doing what makes us come alive, the world's going to be better off. And, not everyone needs to work in sustainability. Like, you don't. We need a lot of people working in it, but we don't need everyone to work in it. We want people to do things that make them come alive. We need good teachers. We need good people that, they're trying to make a difference in their own way. They don't all have to be focused on climate change. So I think that's also something people need to have really figured out too is this really the field I want to be in? Like, you can care about climate change and not have to make it your whole career. Like, honestly, the best thing any one of us can do right now in the US is just vote. Well, vote Democrat. I'm going to say that. I can say that. Vote Democrat. That's the best thing you could do to address climate change right now in the US. And I say that like, even I have Republican friends that agree with me on that. And, getting involved in your community, like, you don't have to make it your whole career, but there's other ways to get involved than being a CSO.
Yeah, absolutely. And just being able to, keep moving forward, keep making steps towards the skills that you need to do the things that you're good at, right?
Exactly.
Well, Mike, you've shared so many inspiring stories and awesome advice for how people can move forward in their career in sustainability or even just start working on sustainability where they're at now. It's been amazing climbing the sustainability Kilimanjaro with you this evening.
Thank you. And hopefully you can breathe.
Maybe one day I'll actually climb the real Kilimanjaro.
You should. It's doable. You just got to train hard and they say pole in Swahili in Tanzania. So it just means go slowly.
There you go. Take one step at a time, right? Take
Exactly.
One step in that career.
That's right. Thanks, Lewis.
Hey everyone, it's Lewis wrapping up this episode. With this being the last episode of 2023, I spent some time reflecting on my journey this year, starting this podcast, and learning so much along the way. I can't express enough gratitude for every guest who spoke with me and contributed to this project. I've been so energized by their stories. Most importantly though, I wanted to thank you, yes, you, for listening and coming on this journey with me. Seeing people actually listen to and engage with this content has been more fulfilling than I ever could have imagined, and I really hope you got something valuable from it. If you enjoyed the show this year, I would love to hear about why you listen and what you're trying to achieve in your sustainability career. You can get in touch by signing up for the Sustainability Skillset newsletter on the website and responding there. I'm wishing you all a wonderful New Year celebration, and I hope that 2024 is your best year yet.